Obviously, again, was a great weekend, and we can blast through some of these positives real quick. There were so many of them. I know we just talked about Brentford, amazing crowd, amazing performance, inspired performance, and just in general, I had written down here like promoted sides in general this weekend. I thought were really positive. The Watford performance against Villa was really inspired. Hernandez looks to be quite the player. I think he'll start going forward, and Sar's a little bit older. They just have a little bit of a nice mix of experience and youth as well. I will say their second goal was like kind of lucky, and like I'm not sure they score 3 goals every single match, but either way, great way to kick off the season against a good Villa team. And then I know Norwich got kind of smacked, but like
They played
they
well.
didn't they didn't play really that poorly. It wasn't like as naive of a Norwich side as like the one that was in the Prem 2 years ago, even though it that like they still couldn't quite hold on there, and they're still pretty young in the midfield. But again, like they have more experience than they did. Good players. I see here like Max Aarons. Yeah,
He was really good.
Cantwell looked good. Gilmore looked good. Like this, I don't think, and I feel like we said this last year. I don't think this is going to be the same relegation battle as last year. I think it's going to be a lot more interesting this year. Southampton look crap. Sorry, I don't round positives, but they might be early contender for a quick relegation. But besides that, a lot of really competitive matches this weekend, a lot of goals, and the promoted sides looked like they're going to give a challenge to everyone else. So that was a big positive for me.
I thought you
Definitely.
I thought you were going to say Watford had a good mix of youth and Troy Deeney.
Essentially,
Yeah,
well,
they did.
I mean, like Deeney, Rose, cycling goalkeeper. They got some good experience in that team, and like 34-year-old Slovakian Kukak. Yeah, he has trust tattooed on the back of his neck, like right underneath his hairline. By the way, like
That's legendary.
like he sent an early message to the league, just went right through McGinn. Like it was a surefire red card, and he like put his foot down at the last second and like barely pulled out. McGinn like flipped over him, and the ref's like, "Yeah, it's a yellow," and everyone's like, "Yeah, it's a yellow." So yeah, a little bit of toughness that promoted sides don't necessarily always have. I see a few exclamation points next to refs. Does someone want to hop in, talk about the refs for a sec?
Yeah, no, I think, we've heard a little bit of a talk of the Premier League changing the rules a little bit, letting the players play, cutting down on dives a little bit more. I think everyone realizes that, like, kind of what's happening to the game, and they need to take back control a little bit. I saw it super clearly in the Spurs City match. They were absolutely letting the players play. There were several like pretty big knocks that went uncalled. And yeah, there were very few dives, and it felt, besides the Jackie one in like the 5th minute or whatever that was, but it felt a little bit like the Euros, in that the refs were just like you guys are gonna have to, like, this is gonna be a dogfight, and I loved it.
So much fun. Shout out just the fans overall. Watching
Oh my God, it's so nice.
such scenes, like just kind of everywhere, even seeing on Twitter just highlights with players going to celebrate with fans. I think you mentioned earlier, was it the Brentford manager running over and like kissing babies and whatnot? Like that was just so cool. I even specifically, not to go back to Spurs City too much, but I could just see Tanganga feeding off the energy of the home crowd. And I thought that was really cool to see, because it was him gaining confidence with his play in real time, and then the fans really backing him every time he'd make a really nice challenge or something like that. So that was just really, really relieving, refreshing, any adjective you want to use to see. Love that.
Yeah. I also I thought it was really funny still watching the highlights from Chelsea Palace when Chalobah scores that screamer. It's like a nice little golf clap. That was basically the reaction, was like, yay.
Classic Chelsea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one kid almost like cried because like unbelievable first goal to have in the Prem.
I think he was
As a
crying because they
defender.
weren't cheering for him.
Well,
For sure, Louis.
well, sort of on the flip, I'm sure Paul will feel similarly, and he can talk about Pogba and Bruno in a second. But on a similar note, fans at the Everton match helped us so enormously. We had such a ridiculously poor run in at home last year, and to go down 1-0 before half and to then win a match for the first time. That's a crazy stat. Think about that. I mean,
That was a crazy stat.
I've been an Everton fan. That's
terrible.
That's at least half of my Everton fandom right there. Where I haven't seen us have a come from behind win after halftime. That's wild. That's really annoying. It's not annoying. It's disappointing. But I don't think that happens without the fans there. I woke up every single person in my brother's apartment building when Takore scored. It was there were fans on the pitch. A lot of Everton supporters are saying it was a top 10 limbs they've seen at Goodison. So that was so awesome to see. And I also was nervous about the reception that Rafa Benitez was going to get, but I think clearly a similar effect I think that Nuno had on Spurs. There's been so much talk of hot young managers as of late, but there's something about an experienced manager. I think Everton saw that last year, first half of the season, when Ancelotti really seemed like he wanted to be there. Benitez has that similar pedigree, and it really showed in that second half. The players really responded. So yeah, and the fans responded as well. Things got eerily quiet after that Michael Keane mistake, but all in all, amazing for the fans to be back. And I think the fans had a huge effect on the way that matches were officiated as well. I think the refs want to keep things flowing because the fans are responding very intensely, whereas when there's no fans there, you can hear the players shouting every single time they get touched, or they could hear them talking to the refs, and the refs not having to deal with so much of that, I think was huge. So all positives there. Obviously Pogba and Bruno in that United match, pretty dang sexy, if I will say so myself.
Nice. I saw you wrote Rafa on the outline, and I thought for a second you were talking about Rafa Varane.
That too. That was kind of sick.
I gotta say, the way they announced him was so sick. Because he everyone, all the fans were so mad that he hadn't been announced, that you're classic United, stalling on the announcement. And then he just walks out and everyone just goes crazy. That's how announcements should be done. That was really, really cool.
Wait, hold on. Before you move on, I will say though, I love how Lindelof delivered an absolute masterclass after that. Literally, Lindelof's best performance in a United shirt. That ball to Bruno was so unreal.
So
and
nice.
He was so good all match. And it's just wait, hold on. I forgot we even had a second center back that played the entire season last year next to Slab. But anyways, continue.
No, it is so funny that happens. But first of all, I gotta say I'm impressed with myself for waking up for that match. It was 4:30 in the morning for us.
Huge
I'm gonna
props.
thank Jones for that, waking me up nice and early.
Wait, why again? Why?
He had a little tummy ache, but but he woke me up, and then I was just I'm just gonna stay up and watch this game, and it was so worth it because the whole game, before all the goals were scored, it was really exciting. Leeds were going, we were going, there were chances. It was really, really fun. And then the goals just started piling on, and it was just so beautiful to watch. Pogba with 4 assists in a game. He's the first United player ever to do it. Only the 7th Premier League player ever to get 4 assists in a game. And that just is how good he is. It's the type of stuff that makes you believe in him again. It literally takes one game for you to believe in him, and it's so amazing. And Bruno was unreal too, in the absence of Cavani and most of our a couple of our starting attackers. He shines so much, and his finishing is just off the charts. I'm gonna talk about this person in a little bit as well, but I think the key to our win and all of our goals, low-key, was Greenwood. He was on fire, and his movement literally just unlocked everything for the entire offense. I like, besides the Luke Ayling screamer, which was also scenes,
Screamer.
it's
freaking
sick goal.
dismissal.
I don't think anyone on the team like stepped a foot wrong. Pretty much, like McTominay was a beast. Even like we love a Fred goal. Like literally the perfect opening day for me. Made 4:30 worth it.
Greenwood far post is like something I've never seen. Like low key.
Dude, it's OP. It's OP.
Yeah. I
Special.
think I also realized watching this game, or at least watching the highlights and then kind of looking at the formation, like having Pogba in that left wing position is so interesting because he's not, like, obviously we know him, he's not a left winger, but kind of having him occupy that space gives him a lot of freedom to be creative while other people do the work around him, like Greenwood unlocking those runs. You know, we'll see it, Sancho unlocking runs, and Rashford, of course, making like intense overlapping runs. And oh my gosh, like when Pogba's on the ball, you can't get it off of him. So giving him the time to actually have it at his feet and then look up and make a decision is where he's at his best. It's like how he plays on France. So I think Ole did a great job really pinpointing where he belongs in this lineup and where he can be useful. I still hate Bruno. That's all I have to say.
I agree, because that was like a lot of times when Everton were at our best last season. We were kind of like a poor man's version of that, with James on the right playing like right winger, but like a winger that can't really move at all, and cutting it on his left, taking his time on the ball, and Richie and DCO running. Obviously, United have a version of that on steroids. And also I'm incredibly curious then what these roles all look like when Sancho then begins to get his minutes. I think he kind of moves into that Dan James spot pretty comfortably, but then, you know, like when Rashford gets healthy, no disrespect to the king Dan James, but
he's into that Dan James spot.
but yeah, I think we know what to expect there. But also on the Greenwood note, this may be like me looking into things a little too deeply, but like his movement reminded me so much of Cavani's movement. And I think like United are reaping the benefits of, like, I don't want to say necessarily going like cheap on that part of the field, but there was a lot of talk when the Cavani signing happened of like disappointment because United had been in on a striker for so long. But having an experienced player like that, to like maybe vault Greenwood's game, I think United are going to reap the benefits of that this season. I think they did this past weekend because, as you mentioned, Greenwood's movement was amazing and very similar to the movement that we're so used to Cavani's having. I think that's something that Greenwood is seeing every single day on the training ground. He's learning from the best. So all positives there.
I totally agree. And I think that like Greenwood's movement is good. His pace also really impressed me. Last year, he wasn't really someone to like gas you down the line, but his goal, like I forget who the defender was, but like he was nowhere. There's no world where he was getting to him, and they sprinted like 30 yards down the field. Like that was pretty good, and that's something he might not have been able to pull off last year. Also, like we talk about the experience of Cavani and how that helps Greenwood, but like Cavani actually in that team would also be unreal. Like he still has so much quality on the pitch, which would be great.
Yeah, I'm really, really interested to see just like how this situation at United develops over the course of the season, because they have so many options in terms of how they line up. We've seen Pogba line up on like the left attacking midfielding side, as well as the right attacking midfielding side last year. And that might be his best spot on the team, just in terms of like how he can just like provide the best service, simply put, and not, have to worry too much about defensive duties with having McTominay and Fred behind him. It's a little bit similar. It reminds me a little bit about Ndombele for Spurs. Ndombele is almost best when he's at like the 10, when he doesn't really have to worry about tracking back, and he has two a little bit more defensive, sturdy midfielders behind them who do the dirty work. But when Rashford comes back, when Cavani gets back in there, there's so many options, and I think it could be one of those situations where the intense high competition of the squad really just brings the best out of everyone. I think United have a very very unique position in regards to that, and they're one to look out for.
Thanks, Nico.